Well, now at 9, MARTA is responding to a federal investigation and state inquiry into safety on its network.
The investigation came after a string of violent incidents, including the deadly stabbing of a 66-year-old woman on board one of the trains. Atlanta News First anchor Joe Gorcho is live in the newsroom tonight, breaking down what the transit agency is now saying. Joe?
Blair, Tracy, MARTA details crime rates are dropping while safety investments are climbing. Now, this comes following a wave of violent attacks on its property in recent weeks. So let's walk you through the response to both the federal and state governments. Now, MARTA acknowledges the recent violent incidents, but highlighted the, quote, recent spike in crime due to senseless acts of random violence, labeling them as mere outliers. Now, MARTA revealed that overall crime since 2024 is down 25%, MARTA pointing to increased technology and more officers. One of the key current objectives is addressing fare evasion. A recent study found a fare evasion rate of nearly 18% in 2023. That's quite a jump compared to just around 2% back in 2017. Now, MARTA is spending more than $300 million. I'm sure you've seen some of the work in the area to upgrade their fare gates, but the project is not complete. I'm sure you've seen that as well. Now, in the upcoming fiscal year, MARTA allocated over $147 million for safety and security. And now, when it comes to safety as a whole, MARTA also mentioned this in its response to the state. Quote, MARTA respectfully requests that the General Assembly consider legislation to prohibit weapons on the MARTA transit system for non-law enforcement personnel, similar to the exemptions that already exist for certain public buildings and government facilities, end quote. Now, MARTA also stated that by doing so, it would create a better framework for addressing threatening situations and improving the sense of safety. So, big question, what's next? Well, the Federal Transit Administration will now dig into this data that it was sent by MARTA to see if there are any systemic issues that put the public or workforce at risk. Now, you can read the entirety of MARTA's response on our website right now at AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Blair and Tracy, back to you.
Joe, thank you.